Welcome back, listeners, to another episode of the Buckle Up Podcast and Endurance Conversation. Brian, how are you doing this fine Sunday night?
I'm laughing because it's an ultra running conversation. I am doing well. I am
Wait.
a little stressed. I am watching football. It's MLK this weekend. Martin Luther King is observed tomorrow, Monday, so there's no school. So I have like a bandit of little children upstairs running around, making a lot of noise. I have a lot of schoolwork to still do. So yeah, there's a lot going on, even though it's Sunday night.
Are you doing any run coaching right now? Are you looking at anyone's Strava updates?
None whatsoever. But what I haven't done? I've run a couple 200 milers, but you know what I haven't done? I haven't ran 200 miles in a 1.4 mile loop every 20 minutes. Have you?
No. And I don't know that I ever will. I have crewed it a couple times. That is enough for me. I also don't know that I would ever do it after only having run 100-mile races. So to make that like your first 200-mile race to me seems completely insane. But that's kind of why we had our conversation tonight with Ben.
That's right. Ben Niebla is our guest this evening. And it was a great conversation. He's newer to the sport, but he's really finding his ground and taking off. I don't think his intent, though, Mandy, to go back to your point a second ago, I don't think his intent was to run 200 miles. I think he was just there to show up and see what he could do. It happened to be that he hit the 48th hour and landed at 200 miles. So I don't know if you could walk into that scenario and be like, I'm going to hit 200 miles, right? Do you know what I'm saying? It's a little bit different. Slightly different.
Yeah, it is a little different for Ben. I think other athletes like Nick who ran it, I think he was definitely like, I want to hit the 200-mile distance at this. And he didn't. He fell short. And I think Ben, being totally new to the format, didn't know what to expect. I do know going into it, he said he was going to go until he absolutely could not go anymore. And having been there at the finish line and witnessing his graceful exit out of the race, which we talk about in the episode, I really do believe he went as far as he could go and put it all out there. So much mental, so much physical, but fun to hear just about his training. And I'm always amazed at like how people get into this sport in different ways that motivates them. And his story is, again, a little unique from anyone else we've talked to recently.
Yeah, it was a great episode. We appreciate him coming on. I think we'll start to see Ben in the racing scene. He seems to be already invested in it, and he's showing up. And I'll give you the spoiler alert. He is the assist at across the year. So he was the second runner, the last DNFer.
Yeah,
he was second place, basically. Loser. The last loser. No, was it I guess the first loser would be the first one out. So yes, you're right. The last DNF before Michael ran away with the win in the 48th hour and 20-minute mark.
Yeah, and I think if you guys haven't looked at this race, or you didn't watch the live stream or hear previous conversations about it, the mental demand and physical demand are so different of this format because you're not like a traditional 200-mile race or last person standing. You have a little more time to play with. In this format, it is literally every 20 minutes. So navigating sock changes, shoe changes, nutrition, bathroom breaks, even just taking a minute to just kind of sit in silence, you're really racing against the clock the entire time. So talk about like the stress of cutoffs, which we all know too well. This is a pretty limited cutoff, but in a cool scene, cool format. It was fun to hear Ben's takeaways and what kept him going throughout this entire 48 hours of running in a loop.
Yeah, just crazy to see and witness. I got out for a loop or two. You ran like 35, 40 miles on it, I believe. Something along those lines. I can't remember which one it was. But you ran quite a few laps on it. So that's probably like 30 laps, I'm going to say. I'm taking a rough guess, but I'm just doing quick math. But probably 32 laps of it. Of a 1.4 mile loop, nearly 70% like pavement, asphalt, not even asphalt, concrete is what I'm trying to say. And then like some weird pea gravel, like crusher refined Arizona outfield dirt, basically, because it's a baseball facility. So I feel like that's outfield dirt of some sort. But in any case, yeah, pretty nuts to get 200 miles without even expecting to, or without understanding exactly what the format is and how that's going to all work. I also think we, again, generally speaking, like we do in most of these episodes, but we always touch on our ultra running community and how strong and how positive and how vibrant it is. And Ben speaks to this in depth in this episode. So it was really, again, refreshing to hear and a great reminder. Ben shows up with one friend and he leaves with more than a dozen. So.
Yeah, and I didn't talk about it in the episode. Dave, who was Ben's crew chief, super vibrant, super energetic. Brian, you were there with me in the middle of the night, maybe on New Year's Eve, maybe a little bit the night after. I don't even know.
Mm-hmm.
Just sometime in the dark, sleep deprived hours that we were all there. But Dave was so energetic, so pumped up about Ben, his ability. Definitely tells a story about the crew he had with him behind him. Didn't talk about it in the episode, but at one point I even went up to Dave and I was like, Dave, I love your energy, but like you were being very, very energetic. And when these athletes, in this whatever hour we're in are coming in, not everyone is needing this major hype that he was providing to Ben. So that's just kind of another interesting part of this race is that you're in this confined space, especially after the first 12, 24 hours when a lot of athletes drop out, where we're really sharing valued real estate with a bunch of other athletes. So not only navigating the clock and the course and the timeline, but you're navigating how to coexist in this tent with other crew, other athlete. And Dave was great. He was super sweet and respectful, but he was like, oh, am I being loud? And I'm like, kind of, because some of these athletes now are coming in and wanting to like put on headphones and just chill for a few minutes. So navigating all of that in just such a cool format, cool race. And I think Ben has great things coming his way. He's got the right backbone and support system to get him where he's going.
Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. We appreciate it. Again, we got more stuff in the works. If you know somebody, if you have a friend or somebody you want us to interview, reach out to us on our socials. Hit us up, and we'd love to reach out and see if we can get that guest on the show for you. Take care. Have a good night.
Welcome up to another episode of the Buckle Up Podcast, an endurance conversation. Tonight, Brian and I are super excited to have Ben with us. Ben, how are you doing tonight?
Hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm doing pretty well. Got a little run in today. There's some snow piling up outside. Just a few inches, nothing crazy, but definitely making it interesting out there on my local trails.
Where in the world are you, Ben, that it's snowing a couple inches? Because it's surely not snowing here in Colorado.
Yeah, no, I'm out here in the Northeast. I live in New Hampshire. Actually, I live in Manchester. That's the city. It's not the capital, but it's the biggest city population-wise in New Hampshire.
As Brian alluded to, we're in Colorado. I don't know if you knew that. Both of us are, and we are really missing the snow. So envious, definitely, of the snow. It brings its challenges, but taking a look at your Strava updates recently, you have some really beautiful kind of snowpack or snow drifts on some trails. Looks like fun.
Yeah, it's been nice out here to have the seasons, and I'm sure you guys have the same experience out in Colorado. That's what I really love about living here. Sometimes I'm tempted to move though, somewhere that's a little bit more friendlier for running, because just like for today when I went out on my run, I love running in the snow, but there's such a thick layer of ice under the snow, and the snow didn't really bond to the ice yet. So
it's a good challenge, right? Ben, I want to talk a little bit about your history with sport, how you found yourself in this crazy ultra running world, and kind of where that started and how you progressed to your last major event.
Yeah, thanks for asking, Brian. My history, it kind of started out a little bit in sports growing up when I was a kid. Through middle school and into high school, I kind of dropped off a bit, but I played football. And then I really got into hiking a lot when I was in high school. We have the 4,000 footers out here in New Hampshire that are really popular to hike. So I hiked all of those like multiple times. And that's what really got me into trail running and endurance, was hiking in a way. I would go out to try to bag these peaks, and I would see how many peaks I could get in a day. And I figured, if I just sped up a little bit and I took a little bit less gear, I can hit more peaks and go further. And I kind of got enamored with just being out there in the backcountry and really inaccessible and beautiful terrain. And that's really what caught my heart for trail running. And I actually didn't use that as my primary focus when I started running. I was actually more interested in mountaineering, and I did some mountaineering trips down in Peru, actually at high altitude. And I've done a lot of ice climbing out here, and I just used running as a way to sort of train for climbing, because I heard, trail running is great for mountaineering training. And I just totally fell into love with trail running and the sport and the community, and the people above all else is why I return to it. You just meet some of the most down to earth, genuine people.
That's so cool. I gotta say that my first official co-host on this show, Buckle Up, was Simon Gerard, the Canadian Simon Gerard, who makes a lot of YouTube videos. Most people know who he is. He got started in ultra running from a hiking career. So pretty similar there. And then I actually had a little stint where I worked for Steve House, an uphill athlete, and I trained mountaineers. And they were surprised when I would program running on their calendar. And the ones that stuck with it and got fit were really surprised. And a few of them stuck with it and did like New York City Marathon, kind of crossed over to runners as opposed to just being solely mountaineers or alpinists by any means. So yeah, interesting. I love it.
Yeah, that's cool that you mentioned that you've worked with Steve House, because I know a lot of the big climbs he's done, and I have his book. I think it's Uphill Athlete, or I forget the name of it. I have it on my desk.
Training for the uphill athlete. Yeah.
Training for the uphill athlete, and there was another one, I forget, Alpinism for Beginners. I'm not sure if he wrote that one, but those are 2 books that I have on my shelf. So that's cool to hear that you worked with him.
There's actually like a personal memoir that he wrote, more of a story form and not such a training manual. And I don't know the name of it off the top of my head, but it was really worth the read. I thought it was great. So, and I have all of those signed because I worked for Steve House.
I don't think I knew all that, Brian. Interesting. I learn something new all the time on these podcasts with him. So that's cool. So like going from that, and then now obviously like you've got an ultra sign up resume. What was the transition actually into organized ultra running events for you? 3-4 years ago when you started signing up for the ultras?
Yeah, so I kind of gave my background a bit before ultras and like what got me into trail running, but I started competing in 2023, which I guess now is about 3 years ago. At the end of 2023, I did my first 50K. It was called Pisgah Mountains Trail Races 50K down in, up in, I think, Chesterfield, New Hampshire. And I had been running distance since 2019, nothing crazy, but I'd been doing 10 milers here and there, just to stay in shape and train and whatnot. And, more so for my mental health than anything else, because I just do well when I stay moving. And then I really got into doing some of the trail races. Incidentally enough, after a breakup, I'd really gotten a lot of stored up motivation to get out there and just get out of my comfort zone a bit. And I did my first trail race and I really loved it, but I was so destroyed after it, I'd said, I'll never do this again. And then I signed up a few weeks later for like a 6-hour ultra. And then I was really addicted to the ultra races and just signing up. The next year, I just signed up basically almost every other week for like a race, whether it was like a 50K or an 8-hour or 12-hour. I just wanted to be out there racing and getting experience and meeting people out here that do the same thing and have a similar mentality. And then it kind of exploded last year in 2025. I just had a really good, strong year training throughout the winter after an IT band injury where I was laid up all of September of 2024. It actually hurt really bad to even run like a couple steps. So I had to really do some dialing back and train and like figuring out how to work through that injury. And once I did, and I figured out, to get the strength training and whatnot and get that IT band in shape, I started really reaching for bigger goals. I was doing I did a 50 miler. I did my first 100 milers, Riverlands, and it was just kind of a horrible experience in a way. Like I loved it, but it was just raining the entire race and it was absolutely muddy. But I loved the experience of just running all day throughout the night. And I really felt like I got stronger at night in a way. And that was a really cool experience and like life-changing once I did my first 100. And I was just absolutely addicted to that distance. I just have been signing up for 100 milers since. So then I ended up at Across the Years, the Last Man Standing. It was a race that was recommended to me by a friend of mine, actually. So that's how I got there and made that big performance. So it's kind of my backstory leading up to Across the Years.
I really want to dive into Across the Years, but I do want to back up and just kind of ask, I'm not too familiar with New Hampshire's running community. Is it growing? Is it expanding? Is it thriving? Are you finding some good connections there?
Yeah, we have A community out here called White Mountain Endurance, and they did a lot of races and still do run a lot of races. And now Aravaipa has purchased them, and they, manage their races out here in New Hampshire in the White Mountains. They do the Jigger Johnson and Black Bear Trail races, 50K, and Bald Face Scramble. They have other, sub ultra distance races. So there's a pretty good scene out here, and we have a lot of really strong runners because the terrain out here is just, it's really brutal to run in the mountains out here. With the rocks and the roots, and we have a lot of vert you can stack in your runs, maybe not on a single mountain in the Northeast like out west where you guys have crazy vert, but yeah, we have a pretty big scene out here, and it's growing in my opinion. We got some strong runners. When they actually go out west, they tend to do pretty good from what I've seen elsewhere, so I was happy to represent when I was out at across the years for the Northeast a bit.
Yeah, so the White Mountains, they're the famous ones that are part of the Appalachian Trail. Is that the same whites we're talking about, or you're describing?
Yeah, they're part of the Appalachian Trail. That's correct. And yeah, there's 48 4,000 footers we have in New Hampshire. Not all of them are in the whites, but a lot of the races that are held here are mostly in the White Mountains. We have other races too that are a little bit smaller in local conservation or state parks. So there's a lot of variety out here, and even some races in the winter, surprisingly.
Yeah, those guys that do the through hikes or through runs of the Appalachian, a lot of their memories and a lot of maybe their most significant challenges are usually the whites. When I read about the Appalachian Trail, I always hear about the whites. So it's always fascinated me. I need to get up there sometime soon. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and Ben, how many hundreds have you run before towing the line at across the years?
Before towing the line at across the years, I'd run, I think it was 6. And across the years was officially like my 700-mile finish of 100 miles or greater.
And 200 miles. 48
Yeah,
hours.
200 too. So call it 8. No, we'll call it 7.
Got a double in there.
Yeah, I wasn't really expecting that to happen, but
when did you do the first one then, the first 100?
I did the first 100 Riverlands that rained absolutely horrendously on us pretty much throughout the entire race until the morning. That was back in May. I think it was
of
like
25.
Yeah, of 2025.
Okay, so you did 600s in 25. Wow, yeah. So that's a steep learning curve there, right?
Yeah, it was honestly, but I was just really paying attention to my body and my recovery, and I spoke to a lot of other athletes who had done other hundreds, and I'm really thankful for all of the knowledge that I've learned from them. And I just realized that, your body's a little bit more capable of doing things that mentally you might not think's possible. And I just realized something that's kind of a gift I have is my durability. I just recover really well after these hard efforts, and especially the more that I do them, the better I recover and the quicker I recover, and the stronger I feel. So that's part of the snowballing effect of, that last performance that got me to across the years. The assist there.
Are you doing any special recovery routine that you could attest to that's working for you in general, or anything different that maybe the mainstream people aren't doing, do you think?
No, I don't think it's a whole lot different. Maybe a little bit more in the sense that I tend to be a lot more active in my recovery, and that'll include like even longer runs, but it'll be at like a really low or easy effort, or I'll go out for walks. I love foam rolling, but I don't do like any of the ice bath stuff. I just think like really, in my personal opinion, how my body works and my physiology is the more I move and the more blood I get flowing through my body, the better my muscles recover. And, there's some times where like that might be a little bit to a detriment, and I can definitely like, take the night off instead of doing like a 10 or 15 miler. But usually I'm pretty good at listening to my body. If I need rest, I will not run that day. And, that actually happened a couple of weeks ago. I really pay attention to the signals of my body, and my body said one night when I was getting ready to go out for my run, it said, "You're not going out for a run. You're going to bed right now and you're sleeping." And I just absolutely passed out when I hit the bed, and I slept from like 6 p.m. to 7 a.m. So it was like 13 hours straight of sleep. But that was the sleep that my body needed to catch up after all the sleep that I had lost from across the years. Yeah, just really listening to my body and not being afraid to go out and move a little bit, even if I don't feel like it, or, I think I might be injured. As long as whatever's bothering me doesn't get worse, or as long as it like stays the same or improves, I'll like continue to move. But if it feels bad, if I can continue to do my effort, I will stop. I know where I have limits. Thankfully, I've been really lucky with being able to just recover really quick and get out and keep moving, and then stack my runs up and get back to my mileage. I'm very thankful for that kind of durability I have.
Yeah, I follow you on Strava, and I think I noticed that run that you mentioned. Like, I was going to go for a run, and my body said no, so instead I went to sleep. And I think that's such a powerful thing to share with people, because there's this very fine line. Brian is a run coach and coaches really a lot of athletes, and I'm sure struggles with this, but there's that fine line between that discipline of like go, 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 get it done, but also the discipline of knowing when it's time to rest and recover. So I think having that mindset is such a powerful tool that we often neglect when we're in this like highly competitive, just do it all the time mindset. So I love just the awareness that you share with, what's the thing going on. Brian, you could probably speak to this way more, but I've had this in my own running, and Nick too. Like, is it getting worse? Is this making it better? Or is this, staying the same? And should I continue just to move and primal movements, getting the blood flow going? It sounds like you've done well with that, though.
Yeah, definitely. It's worked pretty well for most of my races. And this 200 recovery from that was definitely a different animal from what I'm used to. And I definitely did like a little bit of damage somewhat to my body. That thankfully I was able to like heal up up till now, 2 weeks going on, like 2.5 weeks after the effort. And I've used ice, and I had inflammation because my leg was swollen after that effort, and that helped out a lot. And I just really paid attention to my body. And I'm not really someone who goes out and streak runs, because I know that's really popular and trendy, and I think that's great and cool that people do that. But me personally, I definitely need to take some time off or back off from the mileage. I can't be running high volume 100% of the time, especially because my goal in particular is usually to perform well at the top of the podium. And for me to do that, I need more rest, and I need to do cycles where I come back off of that high volume in order to perform well.
Let's dive into your last race. Across the years, last man standing. The format was a little different. We talked about it in the previous episode, but just to recap, it was a 1.4 mile loop every 20 minutes. Started at noon on New Year's Eve, at noon on the 1st, and it went until it went. How did this race get up on your radar from New Hampshire? New Year's, why the last man standing? Why this even more strange formatting?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Brian. And the only answer I have to that is my friend David Drebsky, who is the crew chief for me, who really helped me get to that, performance at Across the Years. He'd seen this race, and I think he'd run it before, I'm not sure, but he recommended it to me, the Last Man Standing. He said it's kind of a newer race, but Last Man Standing's popular. And he looked at me and he said, I think you'd be good at it. And I looked up the race and I looked up the course, and just me personally, I honestly love like all distances and all courses, loops, point to point. Like, I'm just totally into all of it. But this race didn't really stick out much for me, because I'm like, oh, it's kind of a boring loop from what it looks like, and it looks like a lot of pounding. And I'm like, I don't know if I want to do a last man standing either, because that format just, without the 20 minutes is it's definitely a different animal from racing distances, fixed distances and times. So I actually didn't really want to do the race, to be completely honest. But Dave knew, he has done a lot of ultras, and he's seen me race and follows my Strava a lot, and I take a lot of advice from him. So when I heard his recommendation, I listened and I signed up, because I just figured, Dave must think that I might be able to do well or win this. And, it's going to be a cool opportunity for me to get down to Arizona, because it was my first time out in the state of Arizona, and just, experience that and get to run in like 60 and 70 degree weather when it's 10 and 20 degrees and snowing out here. So that's kind of what got me to the starting line.
Yeah, so we got to meet, is it Dave? He goes by Dave. David, he was your crew chief. We were in the tent. Brian was in there with me a little bit during that race, and he was your biggest, loudest cheerleader. I mean, it felt like there was definitely a connection there. So I could see where there would be a time where leading up to this, he would definitely tune in and let you know, like, hey, you need to do this race. You're going to do great at it. I don't know if you remember this, because I know that you've mentioned in your post, like, things get foggy and you forget everything. But I mean, every time you came in from every loop, Dave was like, okay, you're doing great. You were built for this. You've got this. And I think just from like a spectator's perspective, and I was there last year crewing Nick as well, but I don't think anyone had known like who you were, where you were coming from. So, Maya Detmer was there, and people were, she was kind of a favorite being a part of the Aravaipa team and that group. Stephanie had done well before, Nick had done well before, Tyler was there before. So there were a lot of people that were coming back. Mike McKnight was there running. And so it was kind of fun to watch your name start to get this buzz. And David also verbally letting us all know, like, this kid is made for this. Like, he is going to do well. And he didn't just tell you this, he was telling us this. So it was pretty fun to see a crew chief have confidence in, everything that you were doing.
Dave was really great because he was just, he was constant support every loop. And he crewed me after he did his own 72-hour 3-day race. And he had done over 160 miles. And my race started 4 hours after his ended. So, that was a tall ask from a friend to like get after they had just ran a 3-day race. So I'm sure by the end of it, we both were probably a little bit delirious.
Yeah, he seemed to be a great hype man. He was letting us know, that you, again, like Mandy said, you were built for it. This was your race, and he was spot on. If I'm being honest, like. Again, to Mandy's point, like you were kind of like the underdog story, and you just kept sticking around, and all these names kept coming off this chalkboard list of participants, and one by one they kept falling off, and your name just kept staying on that board, right? So let's back up a little bit to like your experience going to Arizona. It was your first time there. You flew in. Did you come a little bit early? Did you check out the course, or did you just kind of drop your bag? Did you crew David as well for his 72 hours, or any of those questions? Maybe start at the beginning of your Arizona trip, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Starting out from my beginning, I think I got off the plane like Tuesday evening, maybe like 5 or 6 I landed. So I got to my hotel Tuesday night at 10, and then the race started at 12 the next day, so I had plenty of time to get rest and eat. But no, I wasn't there to support Dave's race. I was working, and I'd taken Tuesday off all the way through Sunday because I wasn't sure how long the race was going to go, being a last man standing format. I was hoping that if I had a good chance, I'd give myself a couple of days extra, and just in case it went, 2 days or longer. But yeah, it was really great to just have Dave there, and I just can't speak highly enough of him as a friend, and just how important it is to have other people who believe in you, because I really didn't know what I was capable of, and I don't really think that I knew that the performance that I put out was possible, but just having other people believe in you is just so strong and important to have people like that in your life.
Yeah, Ben, going into that, so this was your last format of this race, and I kind of want to hear like what was your experience, even just those first like 6 to 12 hours when you're still with it mentally and physically? Like, what was that like? Was it everything you thought it would be? Kind of painting the picture for the audience, like you're in this cramped tent, you and other runners and all of our crews. Is it everything you thought it would be? Was there anything surprising in that first, half day?
Format, I knew it was going to be tough because it wasn't the standard. I knew it was going to be, get up and go, so there wasn't going to be a lot of rest. And I knew, at the beginning it was probably going to be pretty chaotic with everyone at the start, and, utilizing that main aid station tent for the last person standing. I did get a little frustrated with probably my own fault for placing my own bags in the very back, but I got frustrated with like my chair just being out of place, and I just need a place to sit down for a second. Like I had to crash through a bunch of chairs and in commotion and whatnot just to like get to my stuff to kind of reset before the next loop. So that was really chaotic in the beginning, and it was really cool to share the tent with all the other runners, because there was a lot of camaraderie that was formed there, like just shared suffering. So yeah, like the first half day, just like getting acquainted with the format and, characters, and then, the field just slowly thins out, and then you start to get a little bit more personal with the last people who are out there with you on the loop as the runners drop down.
Ben, are you out there? What's the vibe on the course? Are you out there making friends? Is it pretty silent? For you personally, what was your experience in the kind of the on course, shenanigans? Anything going on?
Yeah, there's a lot going on a small looped course with all of these races running simultaneously. There's a lot of characters and personalities and, people with different goals. And it was really cool to rub shoulders with all of these people. And the way I describe my experience there is like I kind of have like become somewhat of a bigger fish in a small pond in the Northeast, but out in the West, I felt like a little bit more like a small fish in a big pond. But I was also very welcomed by everyone there, and I really liked the looped ultra format specifically because I just love talking to people. So I made a lot of friends out there, and the first half day was like just feeling out the vibe, and people were a little tense because of the start of the race and whatnot. But once we all loosened up, we got to know each other real well, especially running out there for 2 days together. And it was really friendly and good. And yeah, I really appreciated that part of the race.
Just as a reminder, the race started at noon on the 31st, so 12 hours in was midnight, the New Year's Eve or New Year's celebration. I was there with Mandy. We were obviously not participants, but we were supporting other runners and cheering and all the things. But for you, like on course in the race, any fanfare, did you even recognize that it was a new year and you just did 12 hours? Do the champagne toast of apple cider or champagne? I think there was. I think there was two options. I'm not sure. Did you do any of that, or were you still in just race mode? I thought there were. There usually has been in the past.
I would have taken the real champagne after all that 12 hours of stress, but I don't think
I'm pretty sure there was real champagne. You don't think there was?
I don't think so. I think it was just apple cider. Sorry to interrupt you, but someone's gonna let us know. Did you have the apple juice, Ben? I know you didn't have real champagne if that was an offering, and if you did, wow.
I think someone had given me a small cup of juice, but it was the new year had rung in right as we were starting our next lap. So I have like a very fuzzy memory. I just know that there was like a lot of excitement as soon as the new year rung in, and all of the runners went crazy at the start line when we started that 20-minute segment at midnight or start at 1 a.m. there. So that was cool.
Yeah, a lot of people showed up to the start line at that hour, but it goes fast for you guys because you're still trying to squeeze out all of that recovery and be calm and chill. So you're not trying to get up in the hoopla. So I think in the background, what's going on is everyone's like taking their pictures and cheersing the apple cider, maybe real champagne. We don't know. I remember even like trying to get Nick in there for a picture. It was like, quickly take a picture. Okay, now go by and go. Do you remember that loop though? Like to Brian's point, do you remember that first loop of the new year and sharing it with anyone or any chatter with anyone specifically on that lap?
Honestly, on that specific lap, I don't remember anything specific. It's kind of a lot of the experience is just like a huge blur. It was past like really past like mile 100. New Year's, no, there's nothing particular on that loop that I remember. I just remember it being really dark, and I think it was starting to get a little bit colder, so I was just more focused on layering. But it was a really cool experience to get to run, from one year into the next. It was just like something special and magic about that, just starting the year off on such a strong and positive note with other like-minded people. That was really, really cool and special.
Yeah, and you kind of alluded to something. So we had some weather this year that was a little bit of, I think, a hiccup for some athletes. For others, seem to embrace it. You coming from, the elements yourself and mountain terrain. How was that for you? Were you expecting that? I mean, it rained probably that night up until like the noon the next day. We had quite a bit of weather, overcast, rain. It was cold. How was that on the body?
Yeah, Arizona threw everything at me that it had, to be honest. From what I understand, of course, everything can always be worse, right? Like Moab last year, everything can always be worse. But yeah, it definitely threw me for a loop. I really enjoyed like the really nice weather, 60s, 70s. I started off in like a tank top, and that was really cool. And then it got really cold at night and windy a bit, and then we got some rain, and then it stopped, and then we got a lot more rain, and it was really just hard to navigate your body temperature. But thankfully, I have a good layering system, and I know how to manage those temperature swings that I know tend to take out a lot of other runners, especially at night. If you're just not prepared, you're pushing your body to such a limit, and you don't have the right layering, that just puts such an additional tax on you. So yeah, coming from the Northeast and having experience with cold and shifting temperatures, that was good. But the dry Arizona heat on the second day really kicked my butt. I was not prepared for that. And I've had really good heat acclimation throughout the summer, and I've done a lot of traveling because I travel for work, and I've been in a lot of hot climates. So I lost all of that recently with the weather we had now, and I think that's partly why um, I struggled a little bit more on that second day. Definitely was the heat and the dry heat, like they say, it takes the sweat off of you, and you don't really realize how much you're sweating.
When you get through the midnight hour, you're into the new year. Gosh, I bet, probably it sounds like that lap or even just the next few laps, right back to work, right back into the groove of things, just kind of, going lap by lap, 20 minutes by 20 minutes. Are you having struggles, or when do you find yourself having struggles is probably a better question. And how are you dealing with them? How are you talking yourself through it?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a lot of struggles with the format, particularly every 20 minutes. That was like really the biggest struggle I had to manage, was that I had to keep my average moving pace above a certain threshold. Whereas in other races where I've even like set course records in, I realized I've had a few bad splits in those races where I would have timed out in a race like this. So just like managing the format of every 20 minutes and just trying to get as much rest as I can in between. But for the first 100 miles, it felt pretty smooth and slow and easy, which is the way I'd expect it to go. But once I got after 150, it was definitely a different ball game, and I hadn't really run much more than 110 miles really ever. So I was really in unknown territory once I was past that distance.
We talked a little bit about the format, and just for the listener, the format, again, 20 minutes, 1.4 miles. It actually equates to really close to what the Big's Backyard last man standing numbers are. I want to say it's 4.17 every 1 hour. The numbers are pretty similar, pretty close, pretty comparable, just for the listener that's trying to do the math. So it does wind up being 24 hours for just slightly over 100 miles. So every 24 hours, you're doing just slightly over 100 miles, like 101 point something, right? I believe.
Yeah, I don't know the exact time, but I just know that someone told me, once I hit that 200 mile split, it was like 47:20, or it was like under that, because that was when I had to be back in the corral and at the start. So based off of that, yeah, the 100 mile would be half of that, I think.
So Ben, when those struggles start coming in at that point, can you describe like the combination of the physical, the mental? What's that feeling like to you when you're like, this is just getting really hard now?
Yeah, I definitely dug deeper in the hole than I ever had. So, yeah, I was really in an intense level of suffering that I had really never experienced before. But the way that I coped with a lot of the issues were just like talking to other people and taking my mind off of it. And I read this article by Ed Eddinghausing, or someone wrote something about Ed Eddinghausing online, and they were talking about their experience to get their first 200 and how much Ed helped them. And his advice is to invest in other runners. So that's what I do in the race, is I really try to build relationships with everyone, because you never know when you need them. And people really came through for me. Like, for example, I had Dave there, my crew chief. There was another young man, Tyler, I think he goes by TJ, who relieved Dave for a bit, and he actually crewed me for a few hours throughout the night, which was amazing for a stranger to do that. There was another runner, Jessica. She gave me my sleeves at night, when I was cold. She dropped, I think, earlier in the race, because she was just using it as a training race, and she had another race planned. But she gave me her sleeves, and I never wore sleeves before, and I wore them pretty much the whole race. They were great. Heidi came over and gave me a breakfast burrito, or gave it to Dave to give to me, because he didn't have time to get it. And then Lindsay and Ed at the end, who helped push me. But like, getting to that spot mentally and physically, just feeling like completely broken. You always have another gear to go. There's always another step to be taken. You just never really submit to failure, or believe that's an option, or listen to that bad voice in your head that's telling you to stop. And I also had other motivators to keep me going, like other people who, I might inspire a bit, or Dave, his effort for 2 days, keeping me going. I really wanted to do as best as I could and make him proud. So yeah, it was really a whole nother dimension of ultra running for me in that experience. And I really, really loved that sort of experience, and it was special. And you know, I really have to give Ed and Lindsay some credit, because at the end they really pushed me there to get in the final few loops when I really didn't have anything left in me to give. Really, mentally I was exhausted, physically I was completely done. And it's kind of crazy to say this, but I knew at some point that I was gonna go down or just be unable to run if the race continued. At like, I think hour 44 I came to that realization. I realized I didn't have a lot of sleep, and if my body told me if I kept pushing, I was gonna not be able to sustain that effort. I just ran until basically I felt like I was gonna go down, and I just eased myself to the ground, gracefully. And at that point, I was just like physically and spiritually, or not really spiritually, but like physically and mentally, I had hit my limit at both. I couldn't move, and mentally, my brain was just exhausted for running 2 days straight with no sleep. So yeah, definitely different beast than 100-miler. For sure.
So we'll just get right to it for the listener that is trying to figure out where you placed in this whole deal. But you ran 48 hours, right? You ran the 48th, the 47:40 loop and completed it, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct? And did you go out on the 48th hour? Oh, you're muted. I'm sorry.
Sorry, Brian. Yeah, I think I went out and I completed that third and final loop of that hour. And then I came in with a little bit of time, and I wasn't in good condition, but I actually lined up. From what I'm told, I don't really remember this too well. At the end of the race is really spotty for me, but Dave told me that I did line up to do that loop at the 48th hour, and that was just the limit I hit right there. Once I started that loop, it was a couple steps in, and I knew that was it.
Completely impressive. So that earns you the assist, second place. One other gentleman did the final, the 48th hour loop, and completed it to successfully be the last man standing, last person standing. Mandy probably knows his name. I do not recall it.
Yeah. So just to kind of back up a little bit, I was there through really all of that. Nick had taken the assist the year before, and he dropped out at hour 36. And shortly after, so he kind of dropped out that same hour this year. And then Stephanie went out shortly after that. And like we went to sleep for a little bit once I finally like called Nick off to the camper and pushed him into bed. But we woke up and I was like amazed to see you guys were still going. And it's just this mind blowing, like having watched and heard everything you all were going through the night, through, I think we were up until like 3 a.m. I was out there watching you, and I just woke up at like probably 9 a.m., 8 a.m. and was like, there is no way they're still going. And to get out and see you still pushing forward, both you and Michael looking so strong, and you can see it in your eyes that you have literally drained everything out of you. It was just incredible. It was remarkable to watch. And those last couple of hours, I know for you, you don't really remember it, but they went so fast. They seemed like it just flew by. And yeah, so got to cheer you on, and actually hopped on the live stream and was emceeing for the last couple of loops there, watching you guys come in. But it really was an incredible showing. And I think, you both came in to that last lap. Like you said, you did have a little bit of time left, and just to watch you stand up and toe the line again and start. But then it was a very graceful fall. You didn't like pass out after the finish line, but it was and this is when I'm done. But yeah, then Michael continued to finish that last loop after you were there. And I hope you remember, like, you were just greeted by so many people with just so many loving arms. Like, you were surrounded by probably 15 to 20 people that were checking on you and helping you up. And, but yes, so Michael completed that last loop. He came in with same kind of that he had been doing. I think he still had a couple of minutes to go. Then that was it. It's 48 hours and it was over like a blink of an eye. But yeah, you really awesome effort. It was such an honor to watch and be a part of it. And it was just really cool to see you guys persevere and to hear the stories, that Nick tells about all the conversations out there. And just like you said before, just great humans out there sharing such a unique experience together that I'm sure you won't forget anytime soon.
Yeah, no, definitely not. A very unique experience, and just really, it was just like a really human experience for me. You know, just getting down to like the last five with Nick, Maya, Stephanie, and Michael. Like, those runners were the most grittiest runners I'd ever encountered in my entire life. And I said to them all, I never thought I'd meet people as stubborn as me, and I finally did. And yeah, just like to see how strong everyone was there in the last five, and even like everyone before the last five, just doing it in that format was just so brutal. Like, shout out to anyone who signed up for that race. But yeah, it was just really personal experience with those last five people, and the women especially really impressed me because we have really strong women runners out here, but I'd never come across women with that type of caliber of running. I've just never encountered. I didn't know that was possible before that race, and it made me question my own strength, and it really mentally got to me to see Stephanie and Maya there just absolutely, you know, crushing miles like machines. It just really mentally kind of got to me. But it was really great to talk to them and like share the course and push each other. And, you know, me and Michael, you know, kind of built a relationship a lot too, for sure. And I actually called him yesterday on my run and spoke with him a bit to catch up. So that was good. He's a great guy, and I'm just so appreciative that he was there to push me that far, you know, to get my first 200-mile finish. I knew it was like a possibility that could happen at that race, but in my head, I thought it was very unlikely. I didn't think that the race would have to go 2 days, but I'm really thankful for the way it did. Even though I didn't get the win, I'm just so appreciative of all the people who helped me get there, complete strangers. You know, it was just a reaffirming experience in humanity for me. So.
It's so great to know that you just showed up knowing one guy, Dave, was going to help you out, and you came out with, dozens of friends, and you're speaking to them on the phone, even after the fact, just on your run, catching up, and like your old time friends, right? Which was only, 3 weeks ago at this point, less than 3 weeks ago at this point from recording. That just speaks to the community, the ultra running community, and how deep and how passionate we are to help everybody. I just love that you got to experience that firsthand. And thanks for sharing that.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. And I really got to give Aravaipa a shout out too, because this was my second, I think, event that I had done that was organized through Aravaipa, and they just did such an incredible job just hosting the event and the logistics and everything. And yeah, just really thankful for them as well. So I want to give them a shout out. And yeah, like I said, or like you said, you know, I showed up with just Dave, and I had such a huge community of people supporting me, and I wouldn't have been able to do that performance if those people didn't invest, you know, their time and energy, you know, go out of their way for me. I don't, you know, at any point I could have, you know, timed out. You know, there's a point where I was like literally a second before timing out. And, you know, if it wasn't for all of the support and just energy from everyone around me, I don't think I could have done that. No, definitely not. So I'm just so appreciative of the community again, and shout out to everyone there who helped me.
Just a question. Do you see yourself doing the format again, or does Dave have different plans for you in the future here?
Yeah, that's interesting. You know, someone asked me that right after the race ended, and I was like, my answer was, you know, the sting and the pain of the race was just too severe and too soon to think about possibly signing up for another one. But I'd really like to give it a shot again. I think I learned a lot, and I learned a lot more about my limits, and I learned more about logistics and how to do better in that sort of a race. Even though it's not necessarily my cup of tea, you know, it pushed me to a place that I wouldn't have gone if I hadn't done it, maybe, or it would have taken me a lot longer to have had that, you know, 200-mile experience. So I'm really thankful that I did do that race, and I would be interested in signing up again. But I have a little bit somewhat different goals in the future going forward.
Yeah, I was going to ask that exact same question. Are you going to toe the line again next year at this race, or would you come back and do maybe a different distance, like a timed distance instead of this format at across the years? We shall see.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in the other races there that are a little bit longer. I'm starting to get into multi-day stuff that's starting to pique my interest after this race. But there was something really special about this last man standing race where I would consider giving it a shot next year, to be honest. And I can't believe I'm saying that because that was just such an absurd experience.
Ben, what does 2026 calendar hold for you? Anything currently on the books, or anything that you've registered for, or any lotteries or anything?
Yeah, it's funny. I think like the day after my race finished, like the Moab lottery opened, and I had already had that on my calendar because I had a friend who ran it last October, and he did finish it. Took him a little over 100 hours, but he got it done even with the rain. So I was really inspired by that, and I put my name in that lottery for this year. So we'll see if I get selected for it. But I have a couple hundreds that I've ran last year that I'd like to run again and try to improve my time on, and some multi-day races coming up. I just signed up for like a 48 hour, which is in February. So I'm really trying to like kind of perfect the multi-day races and just like really dial in my 2 and 3 day efforts because my big A race is the 72-hour race at Notchview this year, which is in July. So I'm just trying to really dial everything in before that race. And I have a really big goal there, which is kind of scary to say. And it might not necessarily be a realistic one, but it's something I want to set. And yeah, so there's a lot of good stuff going on. And in April, I'll also be going down to Argentina to do the Patagonia Run 100 miler down there. So that'll be a cool experience. And the rest of the year, I'll fill in as we go, but I'm leaving some time out in case I get selected for Moab.
I'm not totally familiar with Notchville. The 72 hours, is it looped, and is it more than is it a bigger loop than 1.4 miles?
It's actually, I think it's similar. I think it's one point. I honestly don't know off the top of my head. I should know because I've ran it hundreds of times. So I
Okay.
think it's a little over a mile and a half, like 1.6, 1 point,
Okay.
or right around there, mile and a half, but on a groomed trail with, one huge aid station, and there's a little bit of an incline and rolling terrain, but it's mostly on, pretty easy double track. And it's in Western Massachusetts, out in like the Berkshires. So, yeah, I did the
Yeah,
race
I was just
last.
looking at it. It's in Windsor, Massachusetts, and I'm in Windsor, Colorado. So I just
Mm,
saw that and was like, "Oh, it's in Windsor, different state, but
Yeah,
it looks
different state, but it's a really cool ultra, and it's grown a lot, and like the 3 day race like fills up on like the first day of registration, so it's really popular. And I kind of just like going back there because it's like an annual reset for me in a way. I did the 12-hour there in 2024, and I just completely blew up and did 45 miles, which isn't like terrible, but I knew I could do better. So, when I went back last year to do the 100 miler, I set the course record in the 100 miler, which I put a lot of training and effort in. So like to get that result was huge, and that was like my A race for the year. So yeah, definitely looking forward to doing their 3 day race next year.
yeah, you won't have to finish the loop in 20 minutes, right? You could either go faster or slower.
Yeah, if I have a problem at the bathroom, I won't get timed out, and
That's right.
I could
That's
take
right.
care of my feet. But across the years to take care of my feet, I had to like speed up to a very fast pace at like 100 miles to tape and lube my feet up
Hmm.
again and put socks on.
Ben, I got one last question. We want to be respectful of your time, but you know those big signs when you leave New Hampshire and it says "Welcome to Vermont." I think that is that a neighboring state. I believe that's a neighboring state. Yes. Okay. But you say it says there's big sizes. Welcome to Vermont. You see people pulled over. They're taking their pictures. Maybe they're on a road trip and they haven't been to Vermont before, right? So we give you the opportunity to have your billboard. What's your message to the community?
My message to the community is just get out there if you're interested in trail running, or like, getting out of your comfort zone in general, and give it a shot, and try to meet other like-minded people, because if you go out and you meet other people that are, genuinely good friends, you'll go much further in life with those connections than you will alone. Because when I really entered this ultra running scene, I was kind of a lone wolf. And I was like, do it all on my own, drive to my first 100, do the 100, drive myself back home from it. But, my best performances have been when I have other people there to be the wind underneath my wings to, help give me that lift and perform better than I could when I was alone. So, yeah, my message is to just like, really invest in, your friends that are close, and yeah, give something hard a shot, because you never know what you're capable of. You might really surprise yourself.
Love it.
Yeah, that's great. I love the message. I love the messaging. And again, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much. We'll be keeping tabs on you, Ben. Where can our listeners follow you at? Where's the best place to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm mostly active on like Strava and Facebook, but and yeah, you could reach me at either of those handles. I know like my Strava, I have it set to private, but yeah, I'm not against people following me and looking at my profile. I just try to manage it to be a little more on the smaller side. And my Instagram is Nuclear Oasis, so you could find me there. And I don't post a whole lot on Instagram, but I probably will be doing a little bit more, getting some more content out there, because I know a lot of people tend to use that platform now. So a little bit more old school, I guess.
Cool. Well, thanks for your time tonight, Ben. It was good to see you again outside of the confines of that teeny tiny white tent. I know our family appreciated our time with you and Dave, and I know Nick certainly appreciated you pushing him. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for being someone that just pushes us to do better in this sport, but also do better and be kinder. And that sportsmanship that you showed out there on that course was of true value to all of us. So thank you. And we hope to see you out there next year or at another race very soon.
Yeah, thanks, Mandy. It was great meeting you and your husband. It was an honor running alongside with him and all of those other runners. And thanks, Brian, for having me and, taking time out of your night to have me share my story. I really appreciate it. And I'm sure our paths will cross again, because I'm very, very active with racing, and I really like the racing scene out west. So I'm sure I'll be back out there in no time.
Yeah, thanks again, Ben, and best of luck in that Moab lottery. Love to see you out there.
Thank you, Brian.